First, we have to look at the three main components or three pillars of clinical research business. One are the patients, and we call them actually subjects in the clinical study business. We don't call them patients. And you have to have let's say if you're doing a psoriasis study or an atopic dermatitis study, you need to have a medical dermatology practice, right? That's where you're gonna recruit for your patients. You don't wanna just rely on only heavily advertising that anybody comes from the street. If you have a cosmetic practice, you're not gonna be able to recruit people for psoriasis or for atopic derm, and the vice versa is true. If you have a medical derm practice, then you're not going to be able to recruit for cosmetic practices. So that's number one. Basically, you need the patient population in order to recruit for the study that you're doing. Number two, really, you need to have the contacts with the industry. Mostly all those studies are coming from pharma, and you need to be in contact with your MSL, with the medical affairs of the companies that you're interested to do research with. So of course the context is very important to get the business. But the third one, most importantly, you need to have the infrastructure to be able to run a clinical study business. So what's that infrastructure? The really number one is your clinical study coordinator. Clinical study coordinator will make you or break you. It's almost more important than your spouse. And I'll tell you why. Because if you don't have one, or if they are not good, then you're going to end up doing that work, which you certainly don't want to do. And this is very, very detail-oriented paperwork that becomes really important. You will have monitors from the company. You may have auditors from FDA and from other government agencies that you have to be ready and prepared for this type of activities. So your clinical coordinator is your best person, your best friend to help you with the patients, but the regulatory paperwork, with your interaction as well as and the business with the pharma, and as well as the monitors and the auditors. The second thing, of course, the second part of the infrastructure, to have the appropriate office space, right? You need to have a space for the monitor. You need to have the devices. You need to have an EKG machine. For example, I never knew that I would need an EKG machine in a dermatology office, but when you do a clinical study, you need to have an EKG machine. Almost every clinical study nowadays requires to have EKGs. You should be able to draw blood. If you cannot do it, you need to have somebody who can draw blood for you. So all those little things. For example, you have to have a -20 and -70 freezer in order to keep the drawn blood appropriately, or the drug sometimes requires temperature monitoring. You have to have some mini or mini max temp readers that your refrigerator is monitored appropriately, so that you don't want the drug to be out of range when you're gone over the weekend. So there are a lot of little things that you need: the equipment and the place infrastructure. So just to summarize, we need three things, right? One is the patient base. Two is your interaction to get the business with the pharma, and number three is the infrastructure, which includes both the clinical study coordinator and the space.